When the lectionary, the Revised Common Lectionary, out of which I often preach, gives us occasion to dance once again, with familiar parables of Jesus, especially ones as beloved and as well known as the prodigal, the man with two sons. When we get a chance to revisit these texts, I'm grateful for a nugget of wisdom expressed first by the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus of Ephesus, expressed eons ago, but it's still true, which is that one cannot step in the same river twice. In other words, a living river is always replenished by new, fresh, flowing water. And we know that it also shapes the banks, and therefore the river is never the same from moment to moment. The river, however familiar you may think it is always new the next time you step foot. This is helpful, and I think it's good to think about as we consider again in church this morning this story that Jesus tells in response to the accusation that he eats and consorts and welcomes sinners, lawbreakers, those outside of the teachings of the law in Scripture. Welcomes folks like that of all kinds and is scolded and judged for it. And he offers this tale about a man who had two sons, which we know so well from our Sunday school days and all of those times that we've studied it in our churches. For most of us, I think, and this is an assumption, but for most of us, when we read or hear Jesus say, there was a father with two sons, we know the story. And so our search for meaning, our imaginations, our search for meaning in the parable basically stops right there. We know, because we know this story so well, that the younger son who squanders his inheritance, but later returns home very sorry and broken and in search of a welcome back, is to be understood absolutely as the model repentant Christian. The older brother who becomes angry at the embrace of his sinner of a young brother. I think I've said that about my younger brothers before. The older brother who becomes angry at the way his father embraces, welcomes his younger brother back. It's obviously the rigid Pharisees, the lawmakers and keepers, or the Jews who don't quite get it, or get Jesus. And then very obviously and simply, the father who offers extravagant welcome to his son and comforts his older son when he is angry, is the stand-in, the allegory for God. And allegorizing these parables to fit within a belief system we already hold may be convenient. It can even be helpful. It can even make an impact on someone hearing it or reflecting on it for the first time. But a couple of things happen that, in my estimation, are not good or helpful. And I think ultimately when we do that, when we allegorize like this, we do a disservice to the parable and to the teller, Jesus. One of the things that happens when we allegorize Jesus' parables to fit into a box we've already created for ourselves is that we miss the richness of the historical and cultural context within which the story was first told. And second, we probably don't talk about this often enough, but it's important. There is a frequent and dangerous tendency, frankly, towards anti-Semitic readings of stories that were always Jewish in the first place, such as the older son being the Jew who doesn't get it. Or they have an incomplete understanding of how God really is. Boxing these stories in, establishing a one-size-fits-all message and orthodox reading of parables is not the point of parables. It wasn't why Jesus taught in parables. Parables were stories. Stories that were intended to spark the imagination of listeners and to challenge them to see themselves in the story in some way. To be encouraged or to be pushed to reflect and perhaps even change their behavior and their ways of thinking about the world, about people, about God. The hearer of a parable may see themselves reflected in a different character or a different role within the story each new time they hear it. Being open to that possibility is and was understood as coming with the territory of telling and hearing parables in first century Judaism. It's stepping into a river, new, fresh, living every time. May we then relate to hear this familiar story, this parable, in such a way this morning. May we let it live and live within us and transform us in the way that a coursing river always transforms its banks and the landscape through which it flows. In that spirit, imagine that this parable is not merely about repentance and forgiveness, and that we ought to always be willing to be like the younger son, and that God is the Father, and that those outside our movement are always stuck as the older brother. I invite you to be open to the possibility of seeing yourself, seeing the church, and others reflected in any one of the characters within the parable of the prodigal, the father with two sons, and be open in this way each and every time you hear it. I want us especially this morning to be open to the possibility that this parable is not so much about who is sorry for what they've done, but as rabbi and New Testament scholar, an awesome combination, Dr. Amy Jill Levine suggests the story really was mostly addressing in the first place, which is, as I discussed with the children during our children's message, who counts? Who counts? Who counts as worthy of God's extravagant love, God's boundless grace? Who deserves it? Who gets it? And then who counts as worthy to then be embraced and loved by the people of God as one of God's own? And we'll start with the answer that the parable ultimately gives, which is absolutely everyone. Everyone counts. Keep in mind the situation that Jesus is responding to in his telling of this story. Jump back to Luke 15, verses 1 through 2. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him. Hear that as lawbreakers, people who nobody liked. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling, saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and he eats with them." Who counts? Jesus responds with three parables. One about a sheep that counts as much as 99 others, another about one coin out of 10, which matters as much as the other 9, and a longer tale of a man who had two sons. Each of these stories, and especially the one that we know as the prodigal story, has something to say about extravagance, extravagant joy, when the prodigal is brought back into the fold, when they once were separated. I think it matters, too, that in each story, the one that was separated never stopped counting in the eyes of the one responsible for it or for their care. The sheep, the coin, the son were needed and wanted, and in the case of the son, loved deeply and completely, no matter what. The beauty of this series of stories is truly, I think, brought home by the one that is our focus today. This story of the father with two sons. Especially if we let ourselves see, hear, and feel it in new ways. Like that river. Everyone in the story counts. And that isn't necessarily easy or comfortable for everybody involved in the story to stomach. It's not. But that doesn't make it less true or important. The younger son screws up. Obviously. Screws up big time. He wastes that which was lovingly given to him by his father. He does, at best, unsavory, undesirable things with his resources, and through a series of combination of poor choices and environmental circumstances like famine, he winds up hungry, poor, and alone. And then he goes back. And he doesn't even make it to the front yard before his dear, loving father comes running, screaming at the top of his lungs with joy, "My son is back." He throws his arms around his son and welcomes him back. The boy never stopped counting, never stopped being loved. Not for 1 second. The older of the man's sons needs to be reminded that he counts too. He's angry. He's hurt. His brother came back, was embraced like nothing had happened or changed, with extravagant welcome. Doesn't make sense. First of all, he wasn't invited to the party for his brother who had been lost. He had to learn about it out in the fields working. And secondly, why on earth does little brother get the party? An older brother who's out there breaking his back doesn't. Little bro screwed up. Big time. And big bro has done everything right. Followed the rules, pulled his weight, and then some. He gets nothing. He feels ignored. Unsure of the degree to which he counts, and that's fair enough. His dad's words are soothing, like a balm for the hurt felt by the older son. At least we hope what his dad tells him in the end of the story is healing. Jesus doesn't say one way or the other in this particular story, but it soothes my soul, and hopefully yours, to hear his dad tell him that all that is his also belongs to his oldest son. He's loved. He counts. And is with his Father always, no matter what. We just had to celebrate, because now everybody who counts in our family is here again. Then again, I think that the father in this story could afford a little bit greater self-awareness and a dose of repentance for his own role in this story and his interactions with his 2 sons. He forgot. He forgot his older son. Not for long, but he forgot to include his oldest son, to celebrate him and shower him with love, to remind him that he counts. Everyone, no matter who they are, needs to be reminded that they're loved. It wasn't enough for the dad to assume that his son simply knew that he was loved. He should have told him more often. Let's tell the people that we love more often than we love them. We as people, as individuals, and as the church, and as citizens, can and have, I suggest, been all 3 of the main characters in the parable of the prodigal. Doesn't matter who you are. You have felt left out. I dare say you have felt unloved, even though you feel like you've done everything right. You've been jealous and resentful of the love and attention received by another person who maybe you didn't think deserved such extravagance. And each of us, I'll confess myself, have forgotten to express love and care and concern for people in our lives who needed to hear it, because we just assumed it didn't need to be said. And at our best, we have extended extravagant welcome to some child of God or group of God's people who some other person or group of people didn't think deserved it. And when we have offered this extravagant welcome, this grace, this love, we have followed Christ. I feel like you should know that the word prodigal doesn't actually mean one who was lost who later returned or something like that, a meaning we often associate with this story. The word prodigal means wasteful or senseless extravagance. It means expending resources or energy in a way deemed excessive by the dominant culture. In this way, we don't only see a son who was a prodigal, though we do see that. He was wasteful. But I think we have a father who, in the eyes of his peers, was also reckless and wasteful in the extravagant love he heaped upon his undeserving son. And you know what? He did it anyways. Christ calls us, his church, to this ethic. It isn't a suggestion. We are to be extravagant in our welcome, in our invitation to remember to love, to remember that people are loved, to be counted, to be cared for, to be celebrated, and to let God's grace heal and transform one and all. our culture, and unfortunately even and especially those who make up the church, even the church itself, the big church around the world. We work mental overtime to explain who doesn't count and to provide reasons as justification for why they don't count as much as some others. This is a choice and a distinction you are free to make as a human being. But as a follower of Jesus Christ, this is not negotiable. If you confess that Christ is Lord, then each one counts equally, is beloved equally, is a child of God equally, deserves safety, security equally, and deserves the equal effort of those who are best equipped to provide it like that Father. So whether it's a homeless veteran with a sign under an I-77 overpass, an asylum-seeking man, woman, or child at our border, those forced to the margins because of their sexual orientation or their gender, or anyone else who has been told that they count less, the Christ follower is to be excessive, extravagant in our welcome, in our love, in our embrace of those who seek it, who seek to belong. You who have been here all along, who have followed all of the rules, who have done everything that's been asked of you, you count. You are loved, you are a child of God, and all of the grace that is God's is yours. But so does everyone else. If Christ is Lord, then all who seek to be loved, to be healed, to be held, to be counted shall be counted and welcomed extravagantly by Christ's body, the church. Let us then, sisters and brothers, confessing Christ as Lord, become the extravagant, prodigal church. Thanks be to God. Amen.